Like I said, 3-minute videos. So if you like and subscribe and we get enough people on board, hey, they'll give us an extra minute here. So Psalm 51 is David's response to those events that were described in 2 Samuel 11 and 12. The adultery, the affair he had, the lying, the murder, and the miserable grief and mourning over their child. Psalm 51 is a journal of the soul. It's a journal of the soul in which a man lays himself out bare spiritually and emotionally in order to do two things. First thing he needs to do, and he's doing it through writing that, he's repenting of his cascading domino trail of sins. Second of all, he writes it to reestablish his loving closeness with God, whom he has wronged. And reestablishing himself with God has to take place before David can reaffirm his relationship with his family, with his community, with his kingdom. And you notice I refer to him just as David here. I'm not referring to him as king at this time because this is the cry of a man who has wronged the creator of the universe. It's not a long poem. The psalm is only 19 verses, it's 337 words long. And yet it conveys a cycle of sin and misery as nothing before or nothing afterwards has ever done. Psalm 51 begins with a plea for God's mercy, knowing that the Father is capable of love and mercy beyond our comprehension. And David doesn't mince words in that time. Cleanse me from my sin. Following that dire plea for God's grace, David admits that he has sinned before God, and his sin started long before he was born, and he was born into it, and he's not been able to do right before the Lord in his life, as all people. So, despite his sin, despite his miserable condition, David knows that God has delighted in him and longs for a return to that shaping of his heart, that relationship where they walked together. So in the next verses, David not only in Psalm 51 not only begs for God's mercy, but he asks that God scrub him inwardly and outwardly. The outer man may be dressed in fine robes, but the heart of David is now just a pile of filthy rags, and he knows this. So he cries out to God that he take him away, that God not turn his face from him. He wants God's face to shine upon him. For when David turned his face from God, God turned his face from him, and he chose to dishonor Bathsheba, dishonor her husband, and dishonor himself rather than live in the presence of God. And that caused God to turn his face from him, to turn his presence from him, and darkness surrounded him in that time.